Perfect. So I'm just going to get started. I'll just ask that you guys do keep your microphones muted for the presentation and save any questions for the end, okay? We will have a little Q&A session at the end. Okay, so beyond the States, student life in Europe. So this seminar is how to enrich your academic, personal, and professional experience while studying in Europe. So this is a question that I get pretty often in our strategy calls. Some parents and students want to know a little bit more about what student life might be like in Europe versus the US, because there are some differences. There are some similarities, but there are some differences. So we'll go through all of that together today. So like I said, thanks so much for joining the webinar. As I just said, yeah, please keep your microphones off and save any questions for the end. All the questions need to be dropped in the chat at the end. And then after, I'll reply to a few of you. And if I can't reply to you today, I will get back to each of you by email, okay? So about Beyond the States. So I know a lot of you already know about us, but we were basically founded a few years ago by Jen, who no longer works with us, but her mission does live on through us. So we believe that higher education is a right, not a privilege. So we've dedicated ourselves to helping students pack their bags and study in Europe, where higher education is more accessible, enjoyable, and affordable for everyone, including English speakers. So we help families and students like yourselves who are interested in going to Europe, but don't necessarily know how to take that first step. So through our consulting services, through our membership community, our online courses, we like to help you guys to see how it is possible and to really make your dreams a reality, okay? So why make the most of your time abroad? So when you're going to get your degree in Europe, it's about a lot more than just academics. It's about personal growth, cultural immersion, and building lifelong connections. Extracurricular activities and networking skills can help to develop your CV, enhance your resume, and create lasting memories. So when you're in Europe, it's about so much more, like I said, than just the academics. There's so many things outside of the classroom that you can do, that you can get involved with, that will just enhance your life. And it's best to make the most of your time when you're abroad, because you might only be there for a few years. So it's great to really get involved in the community and make the most of your time there. So in the next few slides, I'm just going to go through a few things that are different in the US and Europe and how they differ, just to give you guys a better idea. So campus structure. Okay, so many universities are integrated into cities rather than self-contained campuses like in the US. Students live and study within the community, blending with local culture. And in the US, universities often have large enclosed campuses with dorms, dining halls, and athletic facilities, creating a college town atmosphere. So this is one of the big differences that we notice with the campus structure in Europe versus the US. And a lot of parents and students actually ask me this, especially about housing and dorms. So in Europe, most of the schools don't have dorms like you would have in the US. Some schools do. They tend to be the American universities, but for the most part, students are going to have to find their own apartments and find their own accommodation on their own, okay? There wouldn't necessarily be the same dorm life. Same thing goes for dining halls. So while the schools might have cafeterias, it wouldn't be the same as the US dining halls. So students would usually need to pay for their own lunches, or they might not even be using the cafeterias in the school, and they'll need to find other ways. They can make their lunch at home, make meals at home, or they can go to local restaurants or cafes. So housing. So like I said, students frequently live in off-campus apartments or shared housing, offering more independence. Some universities provide limited on-campus housing, versus in the States where on-campus dorms are common, especially for undergrads, fostering a close-knit community feel. Extracurriculars. So in Europe, clubs and activities often focus on academics, culture, or niche interests with fewer competitive sports teams. Whereas in the US, a lot of the clubs do focus on sports, okay? So you'll notice that a lot of the American schools have a lot more emphasis on sports teams, whereas in Europe, you wouldn't have as many opportunities within the university to practice sports. So it's not uncommon for students who are interested in particular sports like swimming or ice hockey to actually join a club or a team that's not necessarily affiliated with the university. So they might find a separate club or team in the local community that they'll be able to join, not necessarily with the school. So, if it's really important to you to practice sports or to join a sports team, while it may not be with the school, there are always opportunities to join them within the community. Okay, cost of living. So in Europe, generally the tuition is lower, affordable public transportation is available. The costs do vary by country. Countries like Norway, Ireland, and Switzerland tend to have a higher cost of living, while countries like Portugal, Poland, and Czech Republic have lower costs of living. And in the US, you do have higher tuition fees, campus meal plans, and housing that can make student life more expensive. Another thing about the US is, you usually need to have a car to get around, unless if you're in a city with good public transportation. Whereas, like I mentioned earlier, in Europe, there's affordable and accessible public transportation everywhere. A lot of the public transportation could be free, or it could be very low cost if you have a student card as well. Okay, social life. So in Europe, students enjoy nightlife, cafes, cultural events. Bars and clubs often replace large house parties or frat parties. And in the US, social life usually revolves around campus events, Greek life, and large social gatherings. Independence. So this is a big one. European universities and schools have a big emphasis on self-sufficiency in housing, food, and navigating the city. There's also generally less student support at schools. So I don't want to say that the students are left on their own when they go to Europe, but there is a little bit more independence that's expected of you. Like I said, you'll need to be self-sufficient in finding your own housing. So you'll need to look on Facebook groups, on different communities to be able to find an apartment for you, okay? Same with food. Like I said, there's not necessarily a campus dining hall, so you might need to find your own way to prepare your meals. Whereas in the US, universities do tend to provide more structured support, including meal plans and extensive student services. So you will find when you're in Europe as well, a lot of the student services offices are there, but there won't be as much hand-holding as there would be in the US. They might give you the tools to do things on your own rather than doing things for you, if you know what I mean. Okay, so both do offer unique experiences, with Europe emphasizing integration with local culture and independence, where US universities focus on a holistic, campus-centered environment. So let's take a deeper dive into some of the elements of EU student life. Okay, so joining student organizations and clubs. So like I mentioned earlier, there are some clubs and cultural activities that you can join within schools. So I gave you guys a few examples here. So we'll just start with the international student clubs. So a lot of schools have international student clubs that you can join just to meet people from not necessarily the US, but maybe other countries as well. So you'll find in European schools that there's a lot of students who are coming from other European countries as well, maybe just for a semester or maybe just for a year. So these international student clubs are a really good way to connect with others and, help navigate this new city or this new school that you're attending. There's one in Amsterdam that I wanted to draw your attention to. It's called International Student Network Amsterdam, and it connects international students at that university through a variety of events. They do pub crawls, cultural exchange nights, weekend trips across Europe. So it's a really good way to make the most of your time abroad and become a part of a global community. Next, we have cultural clubs. So in the cultural clubs, you can explore local traditions, languages, and customs through student-run cultural organizations. So I wanted to highlight the Mediterranean Society at Nova University in Lisbon. So they celebrate the cultures of Southern Europe. They organize culinary nights to explore traditional Mediterranean dishes, film screenings to showcase local cinema, and the events really do offer a fun way to connect with fellow students while also learning about the rich heritage of the region. Okay, and next we have some sports teams and fitness groups. So like I said, there might not always be sports teams, but some of them do. And I did want to highlight, I thought this one was cool, the hiking club at AAU. So they're a good way to immerse yourself in stunning landscapes, rich culture of the Czech Republic. The club is open to all students, and they offer an active and adventurous outlet for exploring the country's natural beauty while building connections with fellow outdoor enthusiasts. So there's really interesting kind of clubs to get involved with at your European institution. So I would suggest, if you're planning on starting your degree abroad, take a look at what kind of clubs the school offers. It could be international student, cultural, sports teams and fitness, or other clubs as well. So take a look and see what they offer and try to get involved. It's a great way to integrate with other students, not just local students, but international ones as well. Okay, Erasmus programs and exchange opportunities. So a lot of you guys who I've met before in our strategy calls, you might know that I did a lot of work with Erasmus. So I've worked with a lot of students that take part in this program, and it's one of my favorite programs that Europe has on offer. So when you're going to be studying at a European institution, nearly every institution will have an Erasmus opportunity for you to do. So what it is, it's a European Union program that supports education, training, and cultural exchange among universities. So what you get to do is you get to either go to another school within the European Union and do a semester there, or sometimes up to a year there, where you'll be taking courses in another institution. The cost is usually going to be the same as your home institution. So if you're studying at let's say Nova University in Lisbon and you wanted to go to the University of Amsterdam, you'd be paying the Nova institution prices, okay? So there won't be any increase in fees. So like I said, you have the option to go and do a semester or a year abroad. You also have the opportunity to go and do an internship abroad as well. So you can go and do an internship anywhere from, the minimum is 3 weeks, and you can go up to 6 to 8 months, okay? So you can go and do an internship that is approved by your school, so you can actually get credits by getting practical work experience. Some students also will do Erasmus programs to get linguistic experience. So if you're studying, some kind of language, if you're studying Spanish language, you might be able to get approval to go to Spain to do an internship or do some courses there, and you can get, your linguistic experience as well. So some benefits, like I said, is opportunity to study or intern in another European country, which is great. So, you might get to experience multiple European countries while you're there, which is fantastic. There are also Erasmus grants, okay? So there is availability to get grants and funding for these programs. You just need to work with the university office in order to help you apply for these, but they're quite easy to get, and they can really help make the program a lot more affordable. And there's networking events and integration activities as well. So this is definitely something that I would suggest all students take advantage of if they can. You'll need to contact your universities. They usually have Erasmus offices or study abroad offices. So try to contact them as soon as you know that this is something that you want to do, to kind of get the ball rolling, because there is a bit of planning. So make sure that you go and express your interest early. Okay, volunteering to connect with locals and build resumes. So, benefits of volunteering: you can build meaningful connections with local communities, gain valuable experience for your resume, and learn or practice a new language. Where you can volunteer are NGOs, local charities, environmental projects. Universities sometimes will organize community outreach programs. Some examples that I found are teaching English to local children in Prague through community programs at AAU. You can volunteer at environmental organizations in Warsaw through Kosminski University Student Network. So these are just two examples. There are plenty of other ways that you can volunteer. A lot of cities in Europe will have volunteer centers, so you can go and meet with them, let them know what kind of volunteer work you're interested in, what kind of things you want to do, what you're hoping to gain, and what you're hoping to give back. And they'll usually be able to match you with, with the right organization. A lot of students that I've worked with in the past have volunteered at charity shops, okay? So just local shops where donations are given to these shops, and the products are sold at a very low price. It could be clothing, it could be toiletries. They're sold at a low price to the community. And a lot of students love to volunteer at these shops because they're meeting other people. It's usually other students who are doing that, and they get to practice the local language as well, okay? So it's a really good way to build your resume, make connections, give back to the community, and practice a local language. So it's great. A lot of the Mediterranean countries with coastlines will have beach cleanups weekly. So that's a great way to get involved as well and to give back. So there are so many options of different volunteer work that you can do. So definitely, if this is something you want to do, reach out to the volunteer center within the community, or check if your university has a volunteer center, because they might be able to help you find the right opportunity. Okay, networking events for international students. So there are quite a few events in Europe through the European Union, through the city, through the university. There are a lot of things that you can do to be able to go out and meet people and make professional connections as well. So types of events that are available in Europe. So there are university career fairs. So these will usually take place on your university, or they might take place in conference centers. You'll just need to check where they are. But you'll meet recruiters from global companies that partner with European universities. So this could be a good way to meet contacts that might be able to offer you a job in the future, or calling back to the Erasmus, that might be able to offer you internship placement for your Erasmus program. So it's a really great way to go out and meet connections. Usually they have these fairs maybe once or twice a year. So it's really important to check at the beginning of the year so you don't miss them. Okay, I think these are really important to go to. Alumni panels. So a lot of the universities will host alumni panels where you can learn from former international students who have successfully transitioned to careers in Europe. And a lot of those alumni panels are actually online now. So if you guys are members of our community, we do regularly post different online events. Some of the alumni panels are featured. So if you're not already a member, make sure that you join our community just so you can get notified of all these panels and all of these upcoming virtual events, okay? Professional networking events. So many cities host international student mixers and young professional meetups. So you can always look at, international student organizations would usually be the best resource for learning about those. And leveraging LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a great tool to connect with your peers, professors, and industry professionals in Europe. So definitely make sure you guys are on LinkedIn before you head to school abroad, and make sure that you're connecting with as many people as you can, because you never know what that connection will mean in the future. Okay, my favorite one. Travel as a learning opportunity. So one of the biggest perks of studying in Europe is the proximity to see so many countries, so many cities, and so many cultures. These trips don't just satisfy your wanderlust, they deepen your understanding of history, art, and society. So ways to travel. Weekend trips to nearby countries are easy and affordable. I would suggest to go with a group. Don't necessarily go by yourself. It's always better to buddy up, keep the buddy system. So try to make friends, or as I mentioned a few slides earlier, there are these student networks and these communities that help organize weekend trips to other cities or towns. So exposure to different diverse cultures enhances your perspective. Like I said, group trips organized by student clubs are fun and budget friendly. There might also be sometimes opportunities to travel with your class. So sometimes teachers or professors might organize trips away as part of course credit. Same like, faculty-led type programs that you would get at American universities. You'd have similar options sometimes in European schools as well. So just some examples, you can go and explore the canals of Venice during a weekend getaway from Prague, take a cultural trip to Andalusia with your student club in Lisbon. So you can really take advantage of being in Europe and take advantage of the cheap transportation, cheap flights, cheap trains. Definitely take advantage of that while you're there. Okay, so key takeaways. So getting involved in student organizations and clubs can definitely enrich your experience. Don't be afraid. Try to get involved as much as you can, okay? And take advantage of Erasmus programs to explore more of Europe. Volunteering builds your network and resume while fostering cultural connections, and networking events can open doors to global career opportunities. Travel is an education in itself. Embrace it. Okay, so if you liked this webinar and you're interested in working with us, I have a special code that you guys can use. If anyone wants to join on our guaranteed admissions offering, you can use code webinar700 at checkout. You can get our guaranteed admissions offering then, which includes lifetime access to our database of fully accredited programs, Community membership access. So like I mentioned before, we have a special community where we share insights that we find on different universities and schools. We share upcoming events. You can meet with other students and parents who are in Europe right now who are planning to go and share your experience. So that community is a great resource on its own, okay? We also, with the guaranteed admissions, there's 3 one-to-one consultations with our advising team. So we'd get to meet with you and discuss your opportunities, discuss different programs in Europe. We'd also do a best fit list curation where we'd get you to fill out a fully detailed intake form and we'd curate a best fit list for you. There's and some email support in there as well. Okay, so does anyone have any questions? If you do, please drop them in the chat and I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can today. So I'll probably have time to do about 5 questions today if anyone has any. So please drop them in the chat. Okay, Kelly and Austin. We're considering moving to Europe, France, Portugal, or Cyprus. I'm wondering how many English programs are available there. So quite a few. So I can't speak, I know I can't really speak to Cyprus. I think we actually only have one school that we work with in Cyprus at the moment. And I don't have too much experience with it. But for France and Portugal, there are plenty of English taught programs. I mean, in total, in our database, we have over 3,000 bachelor's degree programs. And a lot of those would be in France. There are many more in France than in Portugal, just because it's a lot bigger. There are a lot more universities, but there are definitely plenty of options in France and Portugal. Kelly and Austin, what was the area of study you guys were looking for in Europe? Probably humanities. Yeah, you'll definitely be able to find some programs, especially in France. And there are a lot of really good humanities programs as well in different countries. So I'm not sure if you're really set on those two, but you know, if you wanna work with me, I can help you find really good humanities programs in other countries as well. You know, like Netherlands has quite a few. So there are definitely some good options for you guys. Okay. Okay, Cindy, is there any sort of support for students to find housing, especially freshmen? Any way to hook up with potential roommates? So the schools usually will be able to provide you with some guidance, okay, to find housing. So they might be able to point you in the direction of Facebook groups. So depending on which country you're looking at, I always suggest the first place to look would be, you know, international students in Prague, international students in Dublin. Look for these groups on Facebook and try to connect with people there. You know, even in our own membership community, sometimes people will post rooms that they have available. So I find Facebook is a really good resource. Otherwise, there are usually student forums within the university where they might be able to find housing. And another thing to check out is if the student school doesn't offer dorms, all over Europe, there are these private student housing facilities that are popping up everywhere in the last, like since COVID really. So you'll find these kind of contained student, almost like dorms, student residences where there is usually a co-working space, there's usually a gym. The students usually have their own room with a bathroom and a shared kitchen. So you can take a look at some of those options as well. They're just popping up everywhere at the moment, and I'm assuming more and more are going to be built, which is great because it gives students kind of like a dorm. They'll be living with other students, and it's just a bit easier to navigate. So definitely look at that. Okay. Stacy, what caliber internships are offered? Considering in the US, internships are quite good and fairly common if you try. I mean, so when I did internship placements for Erasmus, we really worked with everything. So most of my experience would have been with Ireland, Italy, Spain, and France. So some of the internship opportunities that I found for students in Ireland, there was a lot of biomedical engineers, okay, because Ireland is kind of a hub for that. So you have a lot of these medical device companies like Pfizer, Janssen, Cook Medical. So some students would get manufacturing experience. There's some opportunities as well in physiotherapy clinics that I found. I found some electrical engineering internships. There were a lot of marketing availabilities, a lot of administration opportunities, a lot of business. So there are some really great internship opportunities. Again, it depends on which country you're looking for because you do have to think of the language. So Ireland tends to be a great place to go get some work experience because there is no language barrier. So they would definitely be able to get higher caliber internships if they speak the language. So that's just something to consider as well. Okay, and Ramona, is there a booklet or PDF that guides us? So look, definitely I can send you some information. So I see a lot of you guys are asking about certain universities. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep all of your information and I'm going to get back to you guys by email just with a few links, a few resources that you guys can take a look at your own time, okay? All right. So look, guys, thank you so much for joining. That's everything from me. If you guys do have any questions following this, feel free to email us on our support email. And like I said, we do have that webinar code that's valid. I'll email each of you guys just with a reminder on the code and just the recording of this presentation as well, so you can share it with your friends, family, children, anyone. So look, thank you so much for joining. And actually, before I go, we are planning to do another webinar in January. So if you guys can just drop in the chat any topics that you'd like to hear about, that you'd like us to go through, please leave those in the chat before you go, okay? And if you have any more questions, please pop them in there and we'll get back to you by email. Otherwise, have a great night and thank you so much for joining. Take care.